Was he able to locate recorded and stored video footage from the time or around the time the shooting occurred?
Yes, he did.
And did you view it?
I was asking him about, why not move away or, change your life around, change
A mother
location.
who survived 8 gunshots, a son she sadly couldn't protect, and a courtroom packed with men trying to intimidate her with cold stares. What happened when Sandriques Mays stepped into that Tampa courtroom had everybody locked in and watching closely. Let's talk about what really happened when Foolio's mother came face to face with the men accused of taking her son's life. This is a woman who refused to fold under pressure. Imagine walking into a Hillsborough County courtroom after surviving pain most people couldn't handle for even a minute, then sitting just feet away from the men prosecutors say were involved in her son's death. The tension in that room was heavy from the jump. That's the situation. Sandriques Mays is far from an ordinary grieving mother. She survived being shot 8 times and still kept pushing forward like a soldier. Now in 2026, she's back in court as 4 men: Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, Rashad Murphy, and Davian Murphy stand trial on first-degree murder charges connected to the death of her son, Charles Jones II, known across the streets and rap world as Julio Foolio.
As I'm biking out, I'm letting my garage down. Then I just heard the bullets, heard the gunshot. The first thing I could think of was to duck down to the passenger.
Think about this for a second. Your mother is just backing out the driveway, heading to work like any normal day, and suddenly somebody starts firing from the shadows. Sandriques Mays reacted fast and dropped toward the passenger side because she didn't want to get hit above the waist, and that split-second move likely saved her life. But she still got struck 8 times. 8 bullets tore through her body, hitting her whole left side before fragments ended up lodged near the right side like complete chaos inside her body. Even years later, she's still carrying bullet fragments near her spine. She suffered a fractured femur, a split pelvis, and had to learn how to move again while using a walker. The pain from that attack never fully disappeared.
So finally when I heard the gunshots stop, I just slow rolled my car to the, playing like I was.
That was real survival instinct right there. Sandriques Mays stayed completely still and pretended she was gone so the shooters would believe the attack was finished. She even let the car slowly roll forward just to sell the scene and avoid drawing more attention to herself. Only after she felt things had calmed down did she drive back toward the house so neighbors could finally help her. That kind of fast thinking comes from somebody who's lived through serious trauma. People on the block rushed outside immediately, some trying to protect the area while a nurse living nearby worked fast to slow the bleeding. And the wild part is, Sandriques believed from the start this wasn't random at all. According to her, this wasn't about robbery or mistaken identity. She said the attackers were really trying to get to her son and targeted his mother instead. That claim hit people hard because of how personal the situation sounded. What made it even more disturbing was her saying that later on, songs were released with lyrics allegedly referencing the shooting and mocking the situation like it was entertainment instead of real-life tragedy.
They talked about it.
Wow. So they after this happened, they were bragging about it?
Yeah.
Bragging in music about hurting somebody's mother is the kind of thing that shocks people once they really sit and think about it. And even after everything Sandriques Mays went through, 8 gunshots, injuries that still affect her body, months of recovery, medical struggles, missed work, and a damaged car, she still didn't go looking for revenge. She didn't try to strike back, didn't send people after anybody, and didn't keep adding to the violence. Instead, she focused on surviving and rebuilding her life while also urging her son to stay away from more conflict. Meanwhile, tensions on the other side reportedly kept growing louder and more dangerous. That's why her appearance inside that Tampa courtroom in April 2026 carried so much weight. This wasn't some fragile woman breaking under pressure. This was a mother who survived years of pain, trauma, and loss, then still walked into court determined to see the legal process play out. You could feel the seriousness in the room every time she looked toward the defense table. The trial officially began on April 22, 2026, with prosecutors describing the killing of Foolio during his 26th birthday trip to Tampa as a planned and coordinated attack. The 4 defendants, Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, Rashad Murphy, and Davian Murphy, are all facing first-degree murder and conspiracy charges connected to the case. The possibility of the death penalty being considered made this case even heavier, but while the courtroom battle was building, the internet was already going wild over another trial connected to the investigation. Before the April 20-26 proceedings even started, one separate case had already wrapped up. And the outcome left a lot of people shocked, confused, and arguing online about whether the prosecution's entire case was getting weaker. And right in the middle of all that attention was Sandriques Mays, People watched closely as she reacted publicly, sat through testimony, and spoke out in ways that sparked nonstop discussion across social media and local news coverage. To really understand the tension, you have to go back to October 2025. Before Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, Rashad Murphy, and Davian Murphy ever faced trial together, prosecutors chose to separately try Alicia Andrews, who was Isaiah Chance's girlfriend at the time. Alicia was not accused of being one of the shooters or physically carrying out the attack. Investigators claimed her alleged role happened behind the scenes, but prosecutors argued it was still a major part of the operation. According to the state's case, she allegedly acted as a lookout and helped track Foolio's movements throughout the night. Prosecutors claim she traveled in a silver Chevy Cruze alongside Chance while monitoring Foolio's location as he moved from club to club around Tampa. Investigators allege that information was then passed along to the people inside a black Chevy Impala so they could keep track of where he was headed next. The prosecution also alleged that Alicia Andrews helped arrange the Airbnb connected to the group's stay during the trip, which became another major focus during courtroom arguments and testimony. Investigators allege that Alicia Andrews was closely monitoring Foolio's social media posts to keep track of his location in real time. Prosecutors pushed the idea that without somebody watching his movements, the entire plan could have fallen apart. That became one of the biggest parts of the state's argument during trial. According to prosecutors, the evidence stacked up fast. They pointed to phone location data that allegedly matched Foolio's movements throughout the night, surveillance footage from a McDonald's drive-thru showing Andrews with one of the co-defendants, deleted text messages, erased Instagram activity, Cash App transactions, and statements they claimed didn't line up when she spoke with investigators. A lot of people following the case thought the prosecution had built a strong argument. But then on October 31st, 2025, Alicia Andrews took the witness stand herself and gave jurors a completely different version of events. She denied knowing about any alleged murder plot and claimed Isaiah Chance had been abusive toward her during their relationship. During testimony, she described incidents where she said he physically harmed her and controlled parts of her life. Andrews told jurors she believed she was simply staying at an Airbnb, posting regular content online, and didn't fully understand what had happened until after Foolio was killed. Her defense team painted the picture of a woman caught in a dangerous relationship rather than somebody knowingly involved in a violent crime. Still, prosecutors pushed back aggressively during cross-examination. They challenged multiple parts of her story, questioned contradictions about who was present at certain locations, and focused heavily on details they believed didn't match the evidence. At several moments, courtroom observers thought the pressure was breaking down her credibility. But jury decisions can go in unexpected directions, and what happened afterward shocked a lot of people watching the case unfold. On October 31st, 2025, the jury returned with a verdict that instantly had people debating online and inside the courtroom. Alicia Andrews was found guilty of manslaughter, but jurors found her not guilty of first-degree murder and not guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. That outcome changed the entire conversation around the case. The most serious charges, the ones that could have led to a life sentence, did not stick. While manslaughter is still a serious conviction and meant Andrews remained in custody, facing significant prison time, many people focused on the fact that she avoided the top accusations prosecutors originally pushed. For Sandriques Mays, the verdict reportedly felt devastating. Prosecutors had argued that Andrews allegedly played a key role in what they described as a planned attack targeting her son. The state's position was that the actions connected to the case went far beyond a lesser offense. But the jury landed somewhere different. Instead of agreeing fully with the prosecution's theory about premeditation and conspiracy, they settled on manslaughter. That decision immediately sparked reactions from people following the trial, especially supporters of Foolio's family, who believed the punishment didn't fully reflect the seriousness of the allegations. That's why headlines and online discussions kept throwing around words like acquitted, even though Andrews was still convicted of a crime. A lot of people viewed the outcome as her avoiding responsibility for the more organized and pre-planned aspects prosecutors tried to prove in court. For a mother forced to sit through details about her son being killed in a hotel parking lot, that outcome didn't feel like justice at all. To Sandriques Mays, the defense scoring a partial victory felt more like another painful chapter in an already heartbreaking situation. She stayed present throughout the Andrews trial and never hid how strongly she felt about the case. Sandriques showed up to hearings, gave interviews, posted online, and spoke openly on local media about her frustration. She criticized the manslaughter verdict, questioned parts of the defense strategy, and spoke emotionally about the pain of losing her only son. Her reaction spread fast across social media, and clips of her speaking out quickly went viral. Some online posts tried to paint the situation like she was aggressively confronting people in court or creating wild scenes aimed at the defense and those connected to the case. But a lot of those viral narratives were exaggerated for clicks and attention. Sandriques never physically attacked anyone, started fights, or caused the kind of chaos social media users tried to imply. What she actually did was continue advocating publicly through interviews, podcasts, Instagram posts, and media appearances, while making it clear she believed the verdict fell short of true accountability. And honestly, the courtroom atmosphere was already packed with tension before the jury even reached a decision. Judge Michelle Cisco reportedly had to correct defense attorneys multiple times over gestures, interruptions, and behavior during proceedings. There were also heated disputes involving allegations of unauthorized recordings and courtroom photos, which only made the environment feel even more chaotic. At one point, Sandriques' own attorney reportedly had to publicly deny accusations that he was secretly recording court proceedings. The entire trial carried nonstop tension, emotional moments, and constant attention from people following every update online.
But like when you spoke to him, like you being his mom, you knowing him outside of rap, you knowing him, you knowing the real.
I definitely wasn't going to be able to tell him nothing then.
That moment says a lot about the relationship between Sandriques Mays and her son while he was still alive. She reportedly tried more than once to convince him to step away from the ongoing conflicts and constant back and forth drama tied to rap feuds and street tensions. But once he focused on something, it became difficult for anybody around him to change his mind. Now, years later, with her son gone, Sandriques sat inside that courtroom, determined to see accountability for the people prosecutors claimed were connected to the setup and killing. So when the jury returned with a manslaughter verdict instead of first-degree murder, the disappointment hit hard. After the verdict, she didn't disappear quietly or stop speaking out. Sandriques continued pushing publicly for what she believed was justice, using interviews, social media, and public appearances to keep attention on the case. She made it clear she was following every hearing, every legal motion, and every court decision closely. Her Instagram turned into a running timeline of her fight for answers and accountability. She repeatedly reminded supporters that one trial outcome didn't mean the legal battle was over. According to her public statements, she believed there were still major questions left unresolved. Then things became even more complicated in the early 2026. In January, an appeals court removed Judge Michelle Cisco from handling Alicia Andrews' sentencing after a bias petition was filed by the defense. Judge Kimberly Fernandez was later assigned to take over the matter. Since then, sentencing delays have kept stretching the process out even longer. Hearings were pushed back multiple times, including discussions surrounding a possible May 11th, 2026 court date. As of April 2026, however, no final sentencing date had officially been locked in. Alicia Andrews remained in custody, but Sandriques continued publicly arguing that the accountability still did not match the seriousness of the allegations tied to her son's death. And this is where the whole story shifted again. While all the courtroom drama surrounding Alicia Andrews was playing out, the four male defendants were still waiting for their own case to begin. When that trial finally started in April 2026, Sandriques Mays was back inside the courtroom once again, sitting just feet away from the men accused in her son's killing. Despite everything she had already survived, including injuries that still left bullet fragments in her spine, she reportedly stayed locked in on every moment of the proceedings. The atmosphere inside that Hillsborough County courtroom was intense from day one. The joint trial of Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, Rashad Murphy, and Davian Murphy officially began on April 22, 2026, and prosecutors came in presenting what they described as a massive amount of evidence. Investigators pointed to surveillance footage, phone records, text messages, ballistic evidence, and location data that prosecutors argue connected the defendants to the shooting. One of the most talked about pieces of evidence involved footage captured by a Tesla parked near the hotel that night. The vehicle reportedly had Tesla's Sentry mode activated, which functions like a built-in surveillance system by automatically recording movement happening around the car. According to testimony, detectives located the Tesla owner, who was staying at the Home 2 Suites hotel during the incident. Investigators then reviewed the footage directly from the Tesla system, using the dashboard screen inside the vehicle itself. That detail instantly grabbed attention because people online couldn't believe a parked Tesla may have captured key moments tied to one of the most high-profile cases connected to Florida rap culture in recent years.
Was he able to locate recorded and stored video footage from the time or around the time the shooting occurred?
Yes, he did.
And did you view it?
What investigators reportedly saw on that footage immediately became one of the biggest talking points in the case. The video allegedly showed a black Chevy Impala moving through the parking lot along with a silver Chevy Cruze, both later identified by investigators as vehicles connected to the suspects. According to prosecutors, the footage also captured 3 armed individuals running through the area during the shooting. Investigators claimed one person appeared to be firing an AR-style rifle so close to the parked Tesla that the force and vibration from the gunfire allegedly triggered the vehicle's alarm system.
Just the overpressure and concussion of the shots being fired from a rifle in close proximity to the vehicle would have created enough vibration to trigger an alarm system.
The gunfire was reportedly so intense that nearby vehicles could actually be seen reacting from the force of the shots. Prosecutors argued the shooters were using powerful weapons that shook the area during the chaos. According to investigators, the Tesla's camera system captured footage from several different angles, turning the parked vehicle into what almost looked like a full surveillance setup placed right in the middle of the scene. Combined with hotel security footage, prosecutors said they were able to trace the movements of multiple vehicles throughout the parking lot. The footage allegedly showed the black Chevy Impala entering the lot, moving around different sides of the hotel, and stopping near the area where the Tesla was parked. Investigators also pointed to footage of the silver Chevy Cruze making turns through the area before leaving southbound near East McKinley Drive. Prosecutors further described scenes of confusion during the shooting, including a collision involving Foolio's fleeing vehicle and another car in the lot. At one point, investigators even claimed footage captured one of the suspected shooters stumbling into a tree while running through the chaos. That detail spread quickly online because people couldn't believe how much activity had allegedly been caught on camera. Then came one of the details that really stunned people following the case. Prosecutors said the black Chevy Impala believed to be tied to the suspects was registered to Sean Gathwright's mother. Investigators also referenced Ring camera footage that allegedly showed bags being loaded into the vehicle the day before the shooting, which prosecutors argued helped establish preparation connected to the case. Prosecutors argued those bags loaded into the vehicle didn't look like simple luggage for a quick overnight trip. Investigators described 4 backpacks along with a large duffel bag that reportedly appeared extremely heavy, with testimony suggesting Isaiah Chance struggled while carrying it. According to the prosecution's theory, the bags allegedly contained weapons, ammunition, and equipment transported from Jacksonville down to Tampa ahead of the shooting. Defense arguments later suggested the group had traveled for music-related reasons, including claims connected to filming a video. But prosecutors pushed back hard on that explanation, arguing there was no confirmed evidence that any video production actually took place during the trip. Investigators also focused on the timeline, pointing out the group was reportedly in Tampa for less than a full day. Prosecutors questioned why so much gear would allegedly be transported for a music video that never materialized. After the shooting, authorities claimed Sean Gathwright drove the same black Chevy Impala tied to the investigation to his grandmother's home in Auburndale, located in Polk County. According to investigators, he later switched into a different vehicle there. Prosecutors also referenced surveillance footage that allegedly showed someone cleaning or wiping down parts of the Impala before leaving the property in a Toyota 4Runner headed toward Orlando later that same night. That detail immediately grabbed attention because investigators argued it suggested possible efforts to remove evidence connected to the vehicle. Another moment prosecutors highlighted involved social media activity later that evening. Investigators pointed to posts showing Gathwright at a nightclub holding Don Julio tequila, the same liquor brand connected to Foolio's stage name, Inspiration. Prosecutors argued that detail reflected a level of disrespect and public celebration that they believed supported their broader theory about the mindset surrounding the crime. While prosecutors focused heavily on Sean Gathwright's movements after the shooting, investigators said the other defendants traveled back to Jacksonville in a completely different way. According to testimony, Rashad Murphy, Davian Murphy, Isaiah Chance, and Alicia Andrews allegedly ordered an Uber from Tampa back to Jacksonville after the incident. The reported ride covered more than 200 miles and lasted over 3 hours, costing around $187. During trial testimony, the Uber driver stated he picked up passengers from an Airbnb connected to the investigation and drove them back north to Jacksonville. Prosecutors emphasized that the passengers reportedly sat calmly on their phones during the trip and made no visible effort to disguise themselves, which investigators later used to help piece together timelines and movements tied to the case. Then attention shifted back towards Sean Gathwright. According to testimony, only days after the killing, deputies with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office stopped a Toyota 4Runner linked to his grandmother during a traffic stop involving a reported vehicle issue and the smell of marijuana. Investigators testified that a search of the SUV allegedly uncovered multiple firearm-related items, including Glock magazines, an extended magazine, AR-style rifle components, empty ammunition casings, and multiple boxes of 9mm ammunition. Prosecutors specifically highlighted the MaxTech ammunition brand because they claimed shell casings recovered from the Tampa crime scene carried matching markings. But investigators said the evidence trail didn't stop there. Prosecutors told jurors that a later search of Gathwright's Jacksonville residence uncovered additional firearms, more ammunition matching the same brand, and an AR-15 style rifle chambered in .300 blackout. Authorities also referenced finding a brass catcher attachment, a device designed to collect shell casings before they hit the ground. Prosecutors argued that item was especially significant because they claimed it suggested awareness of forensic evidence and efforts to avoid leaving behind shell casings during shootings. Investigators testified that inside the brass catcher attachment, detectives allegedly discovered 2 9mm shell casings trapped in the mesh material. According to prosecutors, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement later analyzed those casings and compared them with evidence recovered from the Tampa crime scene. The state argued the testing showed the casings were linked to the same firearm allegedly used during the shooting connected to Foolio's death. Prosecutors claimed the weapon itself was never recovered, but they told jurors the forensic connection between the shell casings became one of the strongest pieces of physical evidence presented in court. Investigators also revisited an earlier shooting involving Foolio from October of a previous year, where he survived after being struck in the foot. Prosecutors stated that shell casings tied to that incident were allegedly connected through forensic analysis to ammunition and firearm evidence recovered during the investigation surrounding Sean Gathright. The prosecution used those findings to argue that firearms and ammunition allegedly connected to multiple incidents were being moved and stored within the same circle of people tied to the case. Then prosecutors shifted focus toward Rashad Murphy, pointing to surveillance footage they believed created another major link in the investigation. According to testimony, the day before the shooting, Rashad allegedly visited a Walmart in Jacksonville to purchase a prepaid phone. Surveillance footage reportedly captured him wearing clothing, shoes, and accessories investigators later claimed resembled items seen on one of the shooters in hotel surveillance video connected to the ambush. Prosecutors also highlighted details about the suspect appearing left-handed on surveillance footage. During questioning, investigators reportedly attempted to determine Murphy's dominant hand, later arguing his responses and behavior raised further suspicion. By that point, prosecutors claimed investigators had assembled a massive trail of evidence tying movements together from Jacksonville to Tampa and back again. They pointed to phone location records, surveillance footage, ride-share records, ammunition analysis, and vehicle tracking. As pieces of a timeline, they argued consistently matched the prosecution's version of events. At times, prosecutors made it sound like the suspects were leaving evidence behind at every step of the investigation. On April 23, 2026, Detective David Alverson walked jurors through what prosecutors describe as a detailed chain of evidence tied to the shooting. He spoke about the 31 shell casings recovered at the scene, the movements of the 2 vehicles investigators tracked, bullet trajectories, hotel property damage, and the forensic evidence prosecutors argued connected everything together. Jurors also heard emotional testimony from people caught in the middle of the chaos that night. Camilla Bentley, who survived after being shot in the arm, described the terrifying moments during the gunfire. Hotel guests reportedly told the court they heard bullets hitting rooms while families and children scrambled for safety inside the building. Gang investigators then provided broader background about the long-running Jacksonville rap and street rivalry prosecutors believed played a role in the case. According to testimony, investigators traced tensions connected to the feud back several years before the shooting. Through every graphic detail, Sandriques Mays reportedly remained inside the courtroom listening closely. She watched surveillance footage, heard testimony about the ambush, and sat through video evidence prosecutors said showed armed individuals moving through the hotel parking lot. For many people in the courtroom, her presence alone became one of the most emotional parts of the entire trial. And the real confrontation people kept talking about wasn't some dramatic fight scene or viral courtroom outburst. The real confrontation was Sandriques showing up day after day, sitting only feet away from the men accused in her son's killing, and refusing to back down emotionally despite everything she had already survived herself. Because long before the trial ever started, she had already been fighting her own battle through public interviews, court appearances, and nonstop advocacy. Her strength came through persistence, visibility, and refusing to let the case fade from public attention. During pre-trial hearings in 2025, Sandriques reportedly began noticing details and developments that deeply affected her emotionally, adding even more weight to the courtroom moments that followed. According to Sandriques Mays, there were moments during court proceedings where the men accused in her son's killing would allegedly turn and stare directly at her from the defense table. People following the case online reacted strongly to those claims, with many seeing it as an attempt to make the courtroom atmosphere even more uncomfortable and emotionally intense. But Sandriques reportedly refused to let it shake her. She later posted a message on Instagram that spread quickly across hip-hop blogs and social media pages. "The suspects stare me down in court. You cannot intimidate me. Justice for Charles Jones II." That post became one of the biggest viral moments connected to the trial because, to many people, it represented the real emotional confrontation at the center of the case. Not yelling, not violence, not courtroom chaos, but a grieving mother sitting face-to-face with the men accused in her son's death and publicly making it clear she would not be intimidated or silenced.
I know I don't want to be ducking and dodging it. Oh, who this is? Oh, who that is right there. I can't even. That's not no way to live.
That mindset is what reportedly carried Sandriques Mays through every single court appearance. She refused to stay away, refused to let fear control her, and refused to give anyone the impression they could intimidate her into silence. When the October 2025 verdict in the Alicia Andrews trial came back with manslaughter instead of murder, Sandriques didn't disappear quietly or avoid the spotlight. She continued speaking publicly, standing in front of cameras, posting online, and openly criticizing defense arguments and legal strategies she believed failed to reflect the seriousness of what happened to her son. Even during tense courtroom moments, including disputes involving attorney conduct and allegations surrounding unauthorized recordings, Sandriques remained heavily engaged in the process. The viral clips spreading online with dramatic captions about her confronting killers or calling people out were mostly capturing her emotional reactions after hearings, interviews outside court, and public statements where she expressed frustration and heartbreak over the case. What people were really seeing was a grieving mother trying to process unimaginable loss while pushing for accountability through every platform available to her. She never physically attacked anyone or caused violent courtroom scenes like some internet posts tried to suggest. Instead, she stayed composed under pressure while continuing to advocate publicly for her son. Through interviews, social media posts, and courtroom appearances, Sandriques kept Charles Jones II's name at the center of the conversation and made sure the case never faded from public attention. This is where a lot of online rumors and exaggerated headlines need to be separated from what actually happened. If people expected some wild courtroom fight or dramatic TV-style scene with Sandriques Mays physically confronting defendants, that never took place. The four male defendants, Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, Rashad Murphy, and Davian Murphy, had not been acquitted as of the start of their April 22, 2026 trial. At that stage, no verdict had been reached, and all four were still facing first-degree murder charges, along with the possibility of the death penalty if convicted. A lot of the confusion online came from the earlier Alicia Andrews case. Andrews was found not guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy charges, but was still convicted of manslaughter. Because she avoided the most serious charges, some social media posts and headlines started loosely describing the result as an acquittal, even though she remained in custody awaiting sentencing. Her sentencing process later became more complicated after an appeals court removed the original judge from the case in January 2026 following a defense bias petition. Since then, multiple scheduling delays pushed the sentencing timeline further back. But the real confrontation people kept focusing on wasn't physical violence. It was Sandriques continuing to show up in court day after day, despite the emotional weight of the case. She reportedly sat through testimony, evidence presentations, and opening statements, while prosecutors laid out details involving shell casings, surveillance footage, rideshare records, ammunition analysis, and other evidence they argued tied the defendants to the shooting. And for many observers, that steady presence became the most powerful part of the entire courtroom story. It was also Sandriques Mays sitting through courtroom arguments while defense teams challenged the prosecution's case and, at times, pointed blame in different directions. During one portion of the proceedings, courtroom observers claimed Davian Murphy appeared to laugh, a moment that quickly drew attention from people following the trial. Imagine how heavy that situation felt from a mother's perspective. Sandriques had already survived her own traumatic shooting years earlier, spent years publicly urging her son to move away from conflict, and was now sitting inside a courtroom listening to painful details about his death while facing the men accused in the case. For many people watching, moments like that highlighted just how emotionally intense the trial had become. Yet despite everything, Sandriques reportedly remained composed and continued showing up for every major stage of the proceedings. She has also spoken publicly many times about what she believes helped fuel the violence surrounding her son's death. According to Sandriques, the situation grew out of ongoing rap feuds, diss songs, online taunting, and a culture where real-life pain and losses were sometimes turned into entertainment and viral content. In interviews and public statements, she repeatedly argued that music conflicts and public disrespect escalated tensions far beyond lyrics, creating an environment where personal tragedies became part of online rivalries and street politics.
While I was in the hospital, and I was like, hey, we need to just stop this or whatever. But at that point, I can't tell him nothing. I can't tell nobody nothing. I can't tell people who calling me from different places nothing.
That became Sandriques Mays' reality once tensions between different groups kept escalating. According to her public statements, after the conflicts reached a certain point, it felt like nobody involved was truly listening to reason anymore. Not the young people caught in the rivalry, and not the people surrounding them. While recovering from her own shooting injuries, Sandriques said she even tried to build peace with another mother connected to the opposite side of the conflict. She explained that the two women reportedly agreed they would avoid getting personally involved in the ongoing issues between their children and would try not to add more negativity to the situation. But according to Sandriques, communication between them later stopped after pressure from others involved in the feud. She also claimed that after Foolio was killed, attempts were made to reconnect, which added another emotional layer to an already painful situation.
Of course, I don't want to talk now. So you want to talk to me now because you think we have something in common because both of our boys are dead. We don't have anything in common.
That's the heartbreaking reality wrapped up in one thought. People often come around after tragedy happens, but very few step in early enough to help stop things from reaching that point. Since losing her son, Sandriques Mays has continued speaking publicly through interviews and social media, while also working on projects focused on preserving his story and pushing for accountability. And she's positioned herself as both a grieving mother and someone determined to keep public attention on the case. And with the April 2026 trial underway, the pressure surrounding everything has only grown stronger because the men charged in the case are facing some of the most serious penalties possible if convicted. During opening statements, prosecutors laid out what they described as a detailed timeline tied to the shooting. According to the state, investigators uncovered messages, surveillance footage, phone location data, and social media activity they believed connected the defendants to the movements leading up to the ambush. Jurors were shown footage tracing locations. Prosecutors said Julio visited throughout the night, including several clubs around Tampa before arriving at the Home 2 Suites Hotel, where the shooting occurred around 4:38 a.m. Prosecutors also referenced phone records and online activity they argued helped track his movements across the city. The state further tied the case to an ongoing rivalry fueled by diss tracks, social media exchanges, and online conversations that prosecutors claimed increased tensions over time. One detail highlighted during proceedings involved Foolio. Posting his location publicly online during the night, something prosecutors argued made it easier for people to follow where he was headed. That part hit especially hard because, according to Sandriques, she had repeatedly urged her son to move more carefully, avoid constantly sharing his whereabouts, and distance himself from the dangers surrounding the ongoing conflicts. But by her own account, he stayed deeply connected to his city, his circle, and the image he felt responsible for maintaining.
Duck was a leader as well. Foolio, I know a lot of people look up to him. It's just that leadership mentality to where as though you just want to control the ship, and you feel like if you leave, it's like a guilty conscience.
So whenever people see clips of Sandriques Mays inside the courtroom or speaking outside afterward, the full context matters. This is a woman still living with injuries from a 2018 shooting she believes was connected to tensions surrounding her son and the conflicts tied to his music career. This is also a mother who lost her son in 2024 and then spent the following years sitting through painful court proceedings connected to his death. She watched one trial end in October 2025 with Alicia Andrews avoiding the most serious charges while still being convicted of manslaughter. Then by April 2026, she was back in court again as 4 men faced first-degree murder charges and the possibility of severe penalties if convicted. For Sandriques, every courtroom appearance reportedly became its own emotional confrontation. Every interview, every social media post, and every public statement about Charles Jones II carried the weight of grief, frustration, and her demand for accountability. She has repeatedly spoken about what she believes fueled the violence surrounding her son's life: ongoing rap feuds, online disrespect, diss tracks, and social media conflicts that escalated into real-world consequences. According to her public comments, she believes that culture played a major role in the tragedy her family experienced. And despite some dramatic headlines online, there was never some explosive courtroom fight or physical altercation. The situation was much more emotional and layered than that. Alicia Andrews was the only defendant who came close to avoiding the most serious allegations, yet she was still convicted of manslaughter and remained in custody awaiting sentencing. Meanwhile, the trial involving the 4 male defendants continued moving forward, with prosecutors presenting surveillance footage, forensic evidence, phone records, and witness testimony they argued strongly supported their case. Sandriques Mays isn't the type to create chaos in a courtroom or put on a scene for attention. She's the type who walks in, sits front row, locks eyes with every defendant, and keeps pushing for justice through every legal and public avenue available. That's the real confrontation people have been watching this entire time. And until verdicts finally come down in this trial, she's expected to keep doing what she's been doing ever since surviving that 2018 shooting, staying strong, speaking out, and refusing to let her son's story disappear. The trial is still ongoing. Witnesses continue taking the stand, prosecutors are still presenting evidence, and the 4 defendants remain in court facing serious charges. Meanwhile, Sandriques continues showing up despite the emotional toll, carrying years of pain, trauma, and loss right into that courtroom every single day. For many people following the case, the biggest story isn't just the legal battle. It's the strength she's shown through all of it. Through interviews, social media posts, and courtroom appearances, she's made it clear that intimidation, online criticism, or disappointing legal moments will not stop her from demanding accountability for her son. At this point, one thing has become obvious. People may debate the case, argue online, and spread headlines for clicks. But Sandriques Mays has stayed focused on one mission from the beginning: making sure Charles Jones II is never forgotten. If you've been following this case, drop your thoughts below. Do you think the prosecution's evidence is enough to secure convictions in this trial? And if you want more updates on high-profile courtroom stories and hip-hop cases, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn notifications on so you don't miss the next breakdown.